The last thing that killed me on Earth was a smiling campaign billboard falling from a roof. The first thing I heard in another world was 600 students cheering because I had been expelled before receiving a class. I stood beneath a carriage-sized crystal while a ranking board broke my word first into the number 600. Foreign memories told me this body belonged to Ivan, an orphan who had studied 4 years to enter Atlas Academy. He owned 2 copper coins and had made the mistake of scoring higher than Garrick. Garrick stood beside Professor Volmar in a red cape long enough to clean the stage. Volmar showed the crowd an answer key supposedly found in my bag and revoked my scholarship, room, and selection priority. The paper carried a silver training seal. Examination records used blue ones. The evidence was false, and both men knew it. "Do you confess?" Volmar asked. "No." Garrick laughed. "He still thinks his answer matters." I did not argue. A poor student could not defeat a professor by shouting. I needed proof, witnesses, and power. Volmar gave Garrick the Royal Spellblade class reserved for first place. Fire rolled around him, and the board announced his reserve of 180 units. Kingdom law still required my awakening. An assistant brought the only rejected crystal, a gray stone labeled Lord of Support. The hall shook with laughter. Leader classes needed followers, and this one possessed no personal mana. I touched it. A voice told me my personal reserve and supporter count were both 0. Then it revealed what nobody else heard. Every true supporter who freely accepted my purpose would place 1/10 of their maximum mana in a common reserve and create one willing command effect. Fear, payment, deception, and force would create nothing. Lost trust would remove the mana. At 100 supporters, my class would become Master of Shared Mana. At 1,000, it would become Creator of a Legendary Movement. Mana could not normally cross the boundary of a soul. My class broke that basic law. It gave me no power, but it gave me a way to build power from trust. The public board showed 0 mana and 0 supporters. "He awakened an empty bucket," Garrick said. Volmar handed me a dismissal order. "Leave before sunset. Students without combat value may report for frontier labor." Frontier laborers carried noble equipment into monster zones. Monsters usually met them first. I looked at the 600 witnesses. No weak student at Atlas Academy will be used as disposable bait again. That will be my purpose. "A grand speech from a man with 0 people," Garrick said. "That makes the number easy to remember." Outside, I had 6 hours, 2 copper coins, and a plan requiring genuine loyalty. It was still better than being under the billboard. In the courtyard, a thin porter named Perrin dropped 6 metal cases. A cracked crystal containing 60 units rolled from one. Garrick ordered him to carry everything anyway. The crystal flashed. I pushed Perrin behind a bench and covered it with its case. Red light split the stone. 50 students turned to watch while Garrick stepped backward onto his cape and nearly defeated himself. "Your porter prevented an injury," I said. "Thank him." Garrick blamed Perrin, but the broken strap carried Garrick's housemark. With 50 witnesses whispering, he ordered his friends to collect the cases and left. "Now he will hate you," Perrin said. "He already held a festival for my expulsion." A copper-haired girl near the fountain laughed. Colleen was the only remaining member of the failed Shield Club. "You moved before the crowd looked," she said. "My clubroom can keep a dismissed student on campus. Tell me whether your purpose was real." I promised transparent missions, voluntary risk, and the right to leave. Colleen told me her brother had died as a porter. His team report had called him damaged equipment. "Then help me make that phrase expensive," I said. She took my hand and accepted the purpose. The system announced that her maximum reserve was 140. 14 moved into the common pool, leaving her 126. Her willing contribution created hold. Mana filled the empty space inside me for the first time. Colleen swayed, and I caught her arm. "Can I take it back?" she asked. The system confirmed she could withdraw whenever she chose. "Then we need a safe test," I said. The old club room contained 3 chairs, a scarred table, a black stove, and a bucket positioned beneath a hole in the ceiling. Rain struck the bucket with the patient rhythm of a prison guard. Cyrell was waiting inside. She wore the white band of an apprentice healer and carried a box of bandages. Colleen told me she had found a leader, she said. I expected someone with followers. So did the class. Cyril placed a measuring stone on the table. I touched it. Blue light formed the number 14. Both women became silent. Kaylin tested her own reserve. The stone showed 126. It moved, Cyril whispered. That is impossible. That word is becoming less useful today, I said. We tested hold in the abandoned practice yard. Kaylin stood beside me while Cyril activated a wooden striker. Its padded arm delivered an impact worth 60 points, enough to break a beginner's ribs but not enough to kill one. I used 10 units of shared mana. A pale shield appeared in front of us. The wooden arm hit it. The shield shattered, but the striker stopped. 4 units remained. The practice yard had 2 other witnesses. Perrin had followed us with the cracked case report. A groundskeeper had followed Perrin because he expected someone to pay for the bench. The groundskeeper slowly removed his pipe from his mouth. That leader cast without personal mana, he said. The measuring stone must be broken, Cyril replied. She sounded hopeful. A broken stone was easier to understand than me. Perrin approached after the groundskeeper left. If your purpose includes porters, I want to support it. Garrick may punish you. He already makes me carry explosive boxes. A fair point. Perrin took my hand. His maximum reserve was 40. 4 units entered the common pool, raising it from 4 to 8. His contribution created the command move, which reduced the exhaustion of anyone acting under a shared order. Cyril stared at the measuring stone. You gained exactly 4. And he lost exactly 4, I said. This power has a cost. She examined Perrin, then Colleen. Neither had suffered damage. They had simply placed 1/10 of their capacity where I could use it. The infirmary charges poor students 2 silver for basic healing, Cyril said. Noble teams are treated first, even when their injuries are smaller. If your club changes that, I support the purpose. I am not supporting your personality. We have known each other for 9 minutes. That is generous. Garrick disliked mine in 3. Cyril touched my wrist. Her maximum reserve was 90 units. 9 entered the pool. The total rose to 17 because I had already spent 10 of Colleen's 14. Cyril's contribution created the command Mend. 3 true supporters. 27 maximum shared mana. 17 currently available. The class had become real before the middle of my first day. Then the academy bell rang. A paper bird flew over the practice wall and opened in front of my face. Volmar's voice emerged from it. Dismissed candidate Ivan has claimed combat value. Under retention law, he may attempt the public guardian trial at noon. Failure will result in immediate removal. Perrin looked toward the main arena. The guardian trial uses an iron golem. Colleen picked up her training shield. Then we should eat something before it hits us. We had no money for lunch. Cyril gave each of us half a dry biscuit from her medical box. It tasted like a small piece of an older, larger biscuit. I ate it anyway. At noon, more than 300 students surrounded the Guardian arena. The ranking board had advertised my trial in red letters. Garrick stood in the front row wearing a new cape. This one was shorter. He had learned something today. Volmar explained the rules. 3 wooden figures represented unarmed civilians. The candidate had to keep them intact for 60 breaths. Every blocked attack earned 4 points. Every destroyed figure removed 50. A score of 100 allowed a dismissed student to remain. The iron golem entered through a stone gate. It was twice my height, with arms like tree trunks and a square head that looked designed by someone angry at boxes. Its attack rating was 60. My current reserve had recovered to 27. 1 full use of hold cost 10. Mend cost 5 to close a moderate wound. Move cost 4 for 30 breaths. The numbers did not allow me to block 6 attacks, so I did not plan to. Garrick stepped into the arena before the start bell. Professor, allow me to demonstrate how a real class handles the Guardian. Volmar approved. Garrick struck the golem 3 times with his flaming sword. Each blow scored 60 damage. His total attack score reached 180. The crowd shouted his name. He turned his back on the golem and bowed. The Guardian had not been told the demonstration was over. Its hand caught Garrick's short new cape and pinned it against the ground. Garrick tried to move. The cape pulled tight around his neck. His flaming sword flew from his hand and landed outside the ring. The crowd stopped chanting. The golem raised one iron fist. I entered the arena before Volmar could stop me. I used move for 4 units, crossed the ring, and placed myself between Garrick and the fist. "Hold," I said. 10 more units vanished. Colleen's pale barrier appeared. The fist struck with 60 points. Cracks covered the shield, but it held long enough for Perrin to drag Garrick out of his cape. 300 witnesses watched the zero-mana leader save the royal spellblade. Garrick crawled over the boundary line. Half his cape remained beneath the golem's foot. The other half remained around his shoulders. He looked like an expensive curtain after a dog had found it. Laughter rolled around the arena. Volmar's face became hard. "Begin Ivan's trial." I had 13 units left. The bell rang. The golem charged the nearest wooden figure. I did not attack it. I ordered Perrin to pull the first figure left and Colleen to push the second right. Moves still reduced their fatigue. The Guardian changed targets whenever a figure crossed the central line. We made it turn again and again. Its feet carved circles in the sand. After 30 breaths, move ended. Perrin stumbled. The golem reached him. I spent 10 units on hold. The barrier stopped one strike. The impact threw me backward, but the figure remained intact. 4 points appeared on the board. The golem turned towards Cyrell. She was not part of the trial, but she had entered the edge of the ring to treat a cut on Perrin's arm. The Guardian marked every moving body as a target. I had 3 mana. Hold needed 10. Mend needed 5. The sensible action was to protect the wooden figures and let an official barrier save Cyrell. The official barrier did not activate. Volmar controlled it. I ran at the golem. I could not stop its fist, so I changed where it landed. I pulled Cyrell down and kicked the third wooden figure beneath the descending arm. The fist struck the figure, bounced at an angle, and buried itself in the sand. The figure broke. I lost 50 points. The trapped arm became a lever. Colleen understood before I spoke. She slammed her shield into the golem's shoulder. Perrin pulled its wrist. I pushed its square head. The Iron Guardian fell across the central line. It needed 20 breaths to stand. The final bell rang while it was still on its knees. The board counted every breath during which 2 figures had remained safe. It added the blocked strikes, the successful redirections, and the rescue of a registered candidate during an active trial. My final team score was 240. Garrick's demonstration score remained 180. For several heartbeats, nobody spoke. Then the groundskeeper from the practice yard raised his pipe and shouted, "The empty bucket beat the royal spellblade." The arena exploded with noise. Students pointed at the ranking board. My name moved from 600 to 421. The board listed me as a retained candidate and provisional leader of the Shield Club. Garrick stood beneath it with half a cape. Volmar tried to end the gathering, but the trial clerk had already recorded the result. 300 witnesses had seen it. By evening, the story had crossed the entire academy. The reward clerk gave me 40 silver coins. 1 silver bought a hot dinner. 1 gold, equal to 100 silver, paid for a month in the poorest residence hall. I had entered the arena with 2 copper coins. I left with my place at the academy, 40 silver, 3 supporters, and 27 units of shared mana. It was not enough to defeat Volmar. It was enough to begin. That evening, rain tapped the bucket in the clubroom. I spent 6 silver on a pot of beef stew, 2 loaves of dark bread, honey tea, and 3 folded blankets. The stew was thick with onions and carrots. Soft pieces of meat came apart under the spoon. Steam warmed my face and melted fat shone on the surface like small coins. Perrin ate 2 bowls before remembering to breathe. Cyril complained that he would need medical treatment if he attempted a third. He attempted it more slowly. Colleen sat across from me, dipping bread into the broth. "You spent your first reward on food and blankets," she said. "The roof leaks and the floor is cold. You could have bought a weapon. With 0 personal mana, I would only own an expensive stick." She smiled. It was smaller than Garrick's smile and much more dangerous to my concentration. After the others slept, Colleen helped me move the table away from the leaking wall. Our hands met on the wood. She did not pull hers away at once. "I saw the silver seal on Volmar's evidence," she said quietly. "I will testify when we have a way to survive the answer. Then we build that way first." The common reserve had fully recovered. 27 units rested inside it. My wallet held 34 silver and 2 copper. My rank was 421. For the first time that day, all 3 numbers had moved upward. Then the system spoke. It detected a 4th supporter signal, although my active count remained 3. I looked around the room. Colleen, Sorel, and Perrin were the only other people inside. The 4th signal came from 83 meters beneath my chair. Its mana contribution was sealed. Its identity was hidden. Its command effect had one name: Remember. I stared at the stone floor. Something far below us knocked once. The second morning began with Perrin holding a frying pan over his head. Nothing attacked us. Part of the ceiling fell into the pan instead. "The room is trying to kill breakfast," Sorel said. Colleen examined the new hole. "That means it recognizes us as members." I checked the signal beneath the floor. It had not moved. The hidden supporter still contributed no usable mana, and the command Remember remained sealed. When I pressed my palm to the stone, I felt a slow pulse, like a sleeping heart behind a thick wall. We had a more immediate problem. A yellow notice had been nailed to our door. The Shield Club needed 12 registered supporters, a 50 silver registration fee, and a passing score in the public loyalty relay before noon. Failure would cancel our provisional status. I would then be removed through the East Gate. We had 3 supporters, 34 silver, and a room that had just tried to season Perrin with plaster. "Volmar wrote the notice," Colleen said. "Normal clubs receive 7 days. Then he is worried." Cyril read the bottom line. "Garrick has already registered a competing protection club." That explained the short deadline. In the courtyard, Garrick stood on a small platform surrounded by 20 students in worn uniforms. Each wore a red ribbon and held a meal voucher. A clerk from the student council recorded their names. "My followers understand loyalty," Garrick announced. "They receive food, equipment, and the privilege of serving a future knight." One student glanced at the 2 guards beside the platform. Another touched the debt collar hidden beneath his uniform. Garrick saw me and raised a silver pouch. "Looking for 50 silver? Kneel, admit you cheated, and I may buy your broken club as a storage shed." More than 100 students had gathered. Volmar watched from a balcony. I looked at the 20 red ribbons. "How many joined after you threatened their meal vouchers?" Garrick's smile tightened. "All of them signed willingly." "Good. The relay will settle it." I walked away before he could turn the exchange into a speech. Colleen caught up with me near the porter barracks. "We still need 9 people and 16 silver," she said. "We need 9 people. The money is a different problem. Most leaders would solve both by promising payment. Payment cannot create my link." The porter barracks stood beside the supply yard. Its residents repaired armor, cleaned monster cages, and carried training crystals for students with better uniforms. Perrin knew which ones had been ordered into dangerous work. We found 9 of them pulling a stone cart loaded with spent mana batteries. The cart's brake was broken. A supervisor sat in the shade eating a pear while the students fought to keep 2 tons of stone from rolling downhill. "They have a delivery quota," Perrin said. "If they miss it, they lose dinner." I placed our remaining 34 silver on the supervisor's table. "Rent me the cart until noon." He bit into his pear. "The fee is 40. The repair office charges 60 for damage caused by a known broken brake. I can take the cart or take the report to the safety clerk." He looked at the students watching us. Witnesses changed prices faster than bargaining did. He took 30 silver and left. Colleen stared at the 4 silver in my hand. "You just spent our registration money." "No, I bought a public demonstration." We pushed the cart into the central courtyard. I asked the 9 porters to sit in the shade. I did not ask them to join. Perrin showed me how the brake should fit. Colleen held the axle in place. Cyril repaired 2 burned hands while I replaced the cracked pin with metal from the club's dead stove. Students gathered because a 0-mana leader repairing a supply cart was more interesting than morning theory class. Garrick arrived with his 20 ribboned followers. "A proper leader gives orders," he said. "He does not crawl beneath a cart." I slid out with grease across my cheek. "A proper wheel stays attached. We all have goals." Perrin tested the brake. The 2-ton cart stopped on the slope with one clean click. The 9 porters looked at one another. A broad girl spoke for them, but words alone were not enough to enter the system. "If we support your purpose, can we still refuse a mission?" she asked. "Yes." "Can we leave the club?" "Whenever you want." "Do you own the mana we contribute?" "No, you do." "If you stop believing in the purpose or in the way I pursue it, the mana returns to you." "Then what do you receive?" "A responsibility large enough to break my neck." That answer made Colleen smile. The 9 students placed their hands on the repaired cart. They did not kneel. They did not swear loyalty to me. Together, they accepted the purpose of protecting weak students from being used as disposable bait. The system counted each decision. Their combined maximum mana was 690 units. 69 entered the common reserve. Several created additional echoes of move. 2 created hold. 1 created mend. The repeated commands did not become new skills, but they became steadier and cheaper. My true supporter count rose from 3 to 12. My maximum common reserve rose from 27 to 96. The measuring stone on the council platform flashed so brightly that Garrick stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence. Every student in the courtyard saw the number. Whispers spread in all directions. "He had 27 yesterday. His personal reserve is still 0. Then where did 96 come from?" Volmar left the balcony. "The first part of our deadline was solved. The second still cost 50 silver. I had 4. Colleen removed the bronze shield badge from her coat. It was the founder's mark of her club. "The pawn office will give 20 silver for this," she said. "We would still be short." Garrick heard her. He climbed onto the council platform and shook his silver pouch. "I will pay their fee," he said. "If Ivan's group scores higher than mine in the loyalty relay, he keeps the money. If he loses, the Shield Club becomes mine, and every member serves me for the rest of the term." His 20 ribboned students went still. The council clerk frowned. "Service cannot be included in a club wager." "Then he will serve alone." Garrick pointed at me. "Unless the leader of 12 brave followers is afraid." Volmar entered the courtyard behind him. "The Academy recognizes the wager. He expected my refusal to destroy my new reputation. If I accepted, he expected Garrick's superior personal reserve to win. Change one condition," I said. "If Garrick loses, every debt contract used to recruit his 20 members is cancelled." The 20 students looked up. Garrick could not refuse in front of them without admitting what the red ribbons meant. Agreed. The loyalty relay occupied the center of Founders Square. 2 teams stood on opposite sides of a white obelisk. The object measured voluntary coordination. Most clubs used it to test how quickly members could channel their own spells toward one target. Nobody used it to share mana. That was impossible. By noon, almost 400 witnesses surrounded the square. The public ranking board showed the wager. Food sellers pushed carts through the crowd. Someone had already painted a picture of Garrick trapped in his cape and was selling copies for 1 copper. Garrick saw the picture. His face suggested that the artist had a short future. The relay had 3 stages. First, each leader ordered his supporters to charge the obelisk. Second, the team moved a 600-unit stone cube across the square. Third, it protected a glass lamp from 10 training bolts. Garrick went first. He raised his burning sword. "Followers, lend me your strength." The 20 red-ribboned students touched the obelisk. Nothing happened. Garrick repeated the order. The obelisk spoke in a clear mechanical voice. "No genuine support detected." The crowd laughed. Garrick shouted louder. The obelisk repeated itself, also louder. "No genuine support detected." Even the council clerk covered her mouth. Garrick tried to pour his personal reserve into the stone. His fire made it glow red, but the relay rejected individual power. His score remained 0. Volmar stepped toward the device. 4 council examiners moved between him and the platform. The test had too many witnesses to adjust quietly. I touched the obelisk. "You may refuse," I told my 12 supporters. "Nobody loses dinner if we fail." All 12 placed their hands on the stone. 96 units of common mana answered me. The obelisk turned blue from its base to its tip. My first stage score was 96. The sound from the crowd struck like a physical wave. For the second stage, Garrick burned 40 units to push the stone cube with raw force. His boots cut trenches across the square. The cube moved 12 steps before his spell failed. My supporters had less personal power, but Perrin's command had gained 6 echoes. I spent 18 shared units on move. Fatigue spread evenly across us instead of crushing one person. We rolled the cube on the cartwheels I had repaired that morning. It crossed the full square. Our score rose to 180. Garrick stared at the wheels. "That is cheating." The clerk checked the rules. "Wheels are not forbidden." Because nobody expected a club trial to become a furniture delivery. "Then the rules lacked imagination," I said. The final stage placed a thin glass lamp behind each team. 10 wooden launchers fired bolts worth 20 impact points. Garrick stood before his lamp and cut the bolts from the air. He destroyed 8. The 9th struck his shoulder. The 10th shattered his lamp. His final score was 160 after penalties. Colleen stood beside me. Our 2 additional hold echoes lowered the cost of a barrier from 10 units to 8. I used 8 for the first 4 bolts and another 8 for the next 4. The 9th cracked the shield. The 10th passed through. Perrin pushed the repaired cart in front of the lamp. The bolt struck the iron wheel and fell harmlessly to the ground. Our lamp remained whole. The final score above our platform became 280. The Shield Club had defeated Garrick's club by 120 points. 400 students saw the red ribbons unlock and fall from 20 uniforms. The debt contracts burned inside Garrick's silver pouch. The obelisk announced one final result: 20 coerced participants released, genuine support gained, 0. Garrick stood alone on his platform while his former followers walked away. Volmar's expensive student had been publicly defeated by a repaired cart, a glass lamp, and 12 people he had considered useless. The public ranking board moved the Shield Club from 48th place to 31st. The council certified our 12 members, waived the 50 silver fee, and awarded the standard new club grant of 3 gold. I had begun the morning with 3 supporters, 34 silver, and 27 shared mana. I ended the trial with 12 supporters, 96 shared mana, and 3 gold plus 4 silver. Garrick stepped down from the platform. He did not threaten me this time. He looked at the 20 students he had lost. For the first time, his anger contained fear. Volmar had more control over his expression. "Unregistered mana transfer is dangerous," he told the crowd. "The Academy will investigate." "Which rule did we break?" the council clerk asked. Volmar opened the law book. He searched for a ban on an act the law declared impossible. He found nothing. That silence earned more laughter than any answer. We spent the afternoon repairing the clubroom. I paid 90 silver for timber, roof tiles, a safe stove, and new club badges. My wallet fell to 2 gold and 14 silver, with the original 2 copper still hiding at the bottom. The 9 new members repaired the ceiling. Perrin painted the door blue. Cyril opened a free treatment shelf. Colleen fixed the stove and made tomato soup in a black pot. The soup was bright red and smelled of garlic and basil. She placed thick slices of bread in a pan, covered them with sharp white cheese, and heated them until the edges became crisp and the cheese stretched in golden strings. For a while, nobody discussed Volmar, rankings, or mana. We ate at the long-repaired table while rain ran over the new roof and failed to enter. Colleen handed me the first bowl. "You spent almost a third of the grant before sunset," she said. "The roof no longer attacks Perrin." A wise investment. She had flour on one cheek. I reached toward it, stopped, and handed her a cloth instead. Her eyes followed my hand. A small smile appeared. "You count everything," she said. "Mana keeps people alive. So does knowing why they stayed." I looked around the table. The 9 porters had not joined because I was powerful. They had joined because for one morning someone had fixed the cart instead of ordering them to pull harder. I will remember, I said. The sealed command beneath the floor pulsed when I spoke that word. Every spoon on the table trembled. Before I could investigate, a black paper bird struck the new window. It opened above the soup, and Volmar's voice filled the room. The Shield Club will report at dawn for mandatory field practice. Your assigned site is the old drain ruin. Refusal will cancel your registration and restore Ivan's expulsion. Sorel dropped her spoon. The old drain has been sealed for 6 months, she said. The last student team never returned. The mission board outside changed our assignment from beginner white to restricted black. Then someone scraped away the warning and stamped beginner white over it again. Volmar intended to kill us with paperwork. At dawn, the paperwork had attracted 200 spectators. The entrance to the old drain stood beneath the north wall of the academy. Rusted gates covered a tunnel wide enough for a wagon. Volmar waited beside them in white robes sewn with gold thread. He looked like a wedding cake that had learned to disapprove. 3 broadcast crystals floated above the gate. Whatever happened below would appear on a screen in the courtyard. Volmar wanted witnesses because he expected our deaths to look official. The beginner mission is simple, he said. Recover 10 blue drain cores within 3 hours. Failure cancels your club charter. Sorel held up the black restriction notice we had removed from the board. This ruin was closed after 40 students disappeared. Volmar did not look at it. Outdated information. Garrick stood among the spectators. He wore no cape. He had also brought no club. Perhaps the missing students are waiting to join Ivan, he called. Dead followers should be easy to command. Some students laughed. Fewer than yesterday. I touched the measuring stone at the gate. It showed 12 supporters and a full common reserve of 96 units. Volmar's stone showed 900. 3 hours, he repeated. After that, the gate closes. Keep the broadcast running, I said. His eyes moved toward me. Are you giving me an order? I am giving the witnesses a reason to remain. I entered with 12 supporters, 2 lanterns, 6 healing bottles, and supplies worth 2 gold. I had spent the money before dawn. My wallet now held 14 silver and 2 copper, but the club had rope, masks, antidotes, and enough food to survive a night. The gates shut behind us. The old drain smelled of wet iron and rotten leaves. Black water moved beneath narrow stone walkways. Old mana lamps blinked along the walls. Every third lamp was dead. Every fourth looked as if it wanted to join them. Perrin carried one of the broadcast crystals on his back. Its red light showed that the courtyard could see us. The first blue core rested inside a transparent slime. The creature rose from the water and spread across the walkway. It had no face, but its entire body managed to look offended. 3 more slimes surfaced behind it. Beginner monsters, Colleen said. The nearest slime opened around a metal helmet. Teeth marks covered the helmet. The beginner had a difficult day, I said. I used 12 units on move. The command divided our group into pairs without slowing us. Colleen blocked the first slime. 2 porters hooked it with poles. Perrin rolled an empty barrel beneath it, and Cyril froze its surface with a medical cooling charm. I spent 8 units on hold when the other 3 jumped. The strengthened barrier stopped them in the air. They slid down its surface like angry soup. We broke their cores with hammers. 4 blue stones fell onto the walkway. The students above watched supposedly useless porters win without injury. My reserve fell from 96 to 76, while the 4 cores were worth 20 silver each. At the first junction, we found marks carved into the wall, 40 short lines. Beneath them, 1 longer line pointed east. The missing team, Colleen said. The mission route goes west, Volmar warned through the crystal. I turned east. The crystal went silent. The path descended into older tunnels. We found torn uniforms, empty medicine bottles, and iron rings set into the walls. The rings carried the crest of the Academy Supply Office. Someone had installed them recently. Cyril touched dried green liquid on the floor. Feeding resin. It attracts siege beetles. Perrin looked at the rings. They chained students here as bait. The broadcast crystal's red light went dark. Volmar had ended the public feed. Perrin removed a second crystal from his supply bag. The council clerk gave me a spare. Why did you not mention it? Cyril asked. Nobody asked whether I was carrying too expensive objects into a sewer. The spare continued recording. It could not send through the stone, but it would preserve everything. We followed the resin trail to a circular chamber. A metal gate divided it in half. Behind the bars, 40 students lay on dry platforms above the water. Their uniforms were gray with dirt. Several were too weak to stand. An older student crawled toward us. "Do not open the main lock. It rings the feeding bell." "How long have you been here?" I asked. 6 months. Cyril's face became still. "The academy listed you as dead. They bring food once a week. Every month they take 5 of us through the lower door." Something heavy moved beneath the water. We had 56 people in a sealed chamber and 76 available mana. The gate had 3 locks. One was mechanical. One used 100 units of mana. The last connected to the bell. I could not open it alone. "We are the Shield Club," Colleen told the trapped students. "We came to take you out." The older student laughed without humor. "Volmar owns every exit." "Then we will make him explain that in public," I said. I showed them the spare recording crystal. I explained my purpose and my class. I also explained the cost. Anyone supporting us would lose 1/10 of his maximum reserve while the bond remained. Nobody was required to join. We would attempt the rescue either way. The older student placed his palm against the bars. "If you fail, we die." "Yes." "If we support you, you become stronger." "Yes." "And if we stop trusting you, you take the power back." He closed his eyes. "That is more choice than this academy has given us in 6 months. One by one, 40 hands touched the iron gate. The system counted 40 voluntary decisions. Their combined maximum mana was 3,050 units. 305 entered the common reserve. My supporter count rose from 12 to 52. My maximum shared reserve rose from 96 to 401. Because I had already spent 20, my current reserve became 381. The measuring lock exploded with blue light. Every conscious student in the chamber felt it. Several began crying. Colleen looked at the number glowing around my wrist and took one slow breath. "You now have almost half of Volmar's reserve," she said, "and 52 people who must leave alive." I spent 100 units to open the mana lock. Perrin used the repaired brake pin to lift the mechanical latch. Colleen held the bell hammer in place with her shield while we cut its cord. The gate opened without a sound. Our maximum power had risen. Our problem had grown faster. The missing students could not climb the route we had used. The only accessible exit lay beyond the lower reservoir. To reach it, we had to open a flood wheel on the far side of the chamber, while someone held the west gate against the water. I divided the group. 11 volunteers would maintain 3 small hold barriers at the west gate. Cyril would stabilize the injured. Colleen, Perrin, and I would cross the maintenance bridge and turn the wheel. I calculated the costs. The gate barriers needed 300 units for 60 breaths. We had 281 after opening the lock. The repeated hold echoes could reduce the requirement, but only if everyone remained calm. I gave the orders quickly, too quickly. The moment Colleen and I reached the bridge, stone charges exploded behind us. The bridge split. Dust filled the chamber. Volmar's academy seals shone for 1 second inside the broken walls. The blast cut us off from the west gate. The 11 members there could no longer see me. They saw the leader cross to safety with the strongest fighter while leaving them beside rising water. One supporter withdrew, then another. The system did not punish them. It obeyed them. 11 bonds vanished. 84 maximum mana returned to their owners. My maximum reserve fell from 401 to 317. My current reserve fell to 197. The 3 barriers at the west gate cracked together. Water burst through the first gap. "They think we abandoned them," Colleen said. "I did not explain the second route. You explained the numbers. That was not enough." "No." The flood wheel stood 20 steps ahead. Opening it would lower the water and prove the plan, but the gate would fail before we reached it. I turned back. "The wheel," Colleen said. "You and Perrin open it. I will restore the barrier." "With what mana? What remains?" I jumped from the broken bridge into the black water. The current carried me toward the west gate. Metal and stone struck my legs. I used 24 units of move to stay above the surface. When I reached the first barrier, only 173 units remained. The members behind it stared at me. "I failed to tell you the whole plan," I said. "You were right to withdraw. You may leave the bond broken. First, help me move the injured to the upper ledge." I spent 160 units on hold. A barrier rose across the gate. It was thinner than the others and full of cracks. Water pressed against it with the weight of a building. I held it with both hands, although my hands did nothing. The shared mana came from people behind me, and now most of it was gone. Every crack spread cold pain through my arms. Nobody renewed the bond at once. That mattered. Their choice had to remain real even when I needed it. They carried the injured upward. The barrier broke at the edges. Black water reached my waist. Then one of the 11 returned and placed a hand on my shoulder. "I support the purpose," he said. "Explain better next time." 6 units returned. 7 more renewed their support. Together, they restored 61 units. 3 did not. Nobody insulted them. Nobody blocked their path. My supporter count became 49. My maximum reserve became 378. Across the chamber, Colleen and Perrin turned the flood wheel. The lower reservoir opened with a roar. The water dropped away from my chest, then my knees. The pressure on the barrier vanished. The falling water exposed an upper cage containing 12 more injured students. Cyril freed them, explained our purpose, and all 12 joined. They contributed 90 more units. Keeping the cracked barrier alive until the water fell consumed 60 more units. When 12 new contributions arrived, my supporter count rose to 61. My maximum reserve reached 468, and 104 remained available. Then the feeding bell rang by itself. The wall beneath it collapsed. A siege beetle entered the chamber. Its shell was as wide as the clubroom. Academy chains hung from its legs. Green feeding resin covered its jaws. A silver supply seal was burned into its back. This siege beetle had an impact rating of 800 and ignored spells. Volmar had not sent us into an unsafe ruin. He had built one. The beetle charged the upper ledge where 52 exhausted students stood. I had 104 available mana. That was not enough for a direct barrier. "Perrin, move. Everyone to the maintenance rails. Cyril, mend only those who cannot walk. Colleen, give me the bell." She understood. The feeding bell controlled the beast. I spent 30 units on move and 24 on mend. The group crossed the narrow rails while the beetle turned toward the bell in Colleen's hands. She ran along the lower channel, striking it once every 5 breaths. The creature followed her. I used the final 50 units on hold, not in front of the beetle, but beneath the cracked ceiling supports. Colleen reached the old bridge. She threw the bell onto the beetle's shell. Perrin released the maintenance brake. 6 tons of stone fell. My barrier directed the collapse downward instead of outward. The impact drove the beetle through the floor and into the empty reservoir. Its shell split against the flood wheel. The chamber became silent. My available reserve reached 0. Every linked supporter felt the exhaustion. Several sat down at once. I remained standing for 3 breaths, which I considered respectable, and then joined them. We returned to the surface after 2 hours and 41 minutes. We carried 52 rescued students, 14 blue drain cores, 1 siege core, and the unbroken recording crystal. More than 500 people waited outside. Volmar stood before them. "The broadcast failed because Avon entered a forbidden route," he announced. "The missing students were already dead. Any individuals he brings back are unauthorized trespassers." Then the gates opened. 40 supposedly dead students walked into daylight, followed by 12 whose disappearances had never been recorded. The courtyard made no sound at all. Perrin placed the spare crystal in the council projector. It showed the academy rings, the feeding resin, the explosive seals, my failure at the west gate, the supporters who withdrew, and the fact that I had returned for them without demanding their loyalty. The silence broke into shouting. Parents pushed toward the rescued students. Council clerks surrounded the projector. The public ranking board changed the Shield Club from 31st place to 14th before Volmar could reach its control stone. He tried to seize the siege core as academy property. The cracked shell released one final pocket of black digestive liquid. It struck his white robe from his chest to his shoes. 500 witnesses watched the golden professor become the same color as the drain. Even Garrick laughed. He stopped when Volmar looked at him, but he had been half a breath too slow. The monster office paid 12 gold for the siege core and smaller stones. My wallet returned to 12 gold, 14 silver, and 2 copper, while the academy funded treatment for the rescued students. Our strength had risen from 96 maximum shared mana to 468. Our resources had risen by 10 gold after costs. Our club had climbed 17 places. That evening, the club room smelled of grilled river fish and butter. The fish skin was crisp with salt and lemon. Colleen served it beside soft potatoes covered in mushroom sauce. Sorel made every rescued student drink hot broth before touching the food. Perrin fell asleep with bread in his hand. Colleen sat beside me and wrapped clean cloth around the cuts on my palms. "You jumped into black water with 13 available mana," she said. "There were 173 when I jumped." "That does not improve the decision. It improves the arithmetic." She tied the bandage tighter than necessary. "People are not arithmetic, Avon." "I know. You learned that today." "Yes." Her fingers relaxed around my hand. "Good." For a quiet minute, the room held only warm voices, the smell of butter, and rain on a roof that no longer leaked. Then every public board in the academy turned red. Volmar appeared on them in a clean robe. He announced that the 100 lowest-ranked students would face an expulsion examination at sunrise. The Shield Club could protect them by entering the central arena. If our barrier survived 10 minutes against the examiner, all 100 would remain. If it broke, they would be transferred to frontier labor contracts, and our club would be dissolved. The board named the examiner, Professor Volmar. His reserve was 900 units. Mine was 468. At sunrise, he intended to crush us in front of the entire academy. By sunrise, every seat in the central arena was occupied. 600 students filled the stone stands. Teachers stood along the upper rail. The families of the rescued drain team crowded near the gates. 3 public ranking boards floated above the sand, and 5 broadcast crystals carried the examination to every dining hall and classroom. Volmar had wanted a public execution. I agreed with the public part. The 100 lowest-ranked students stood inside a white circle at the center of the arena. Some were 12-year-old preparatory students. Others had been injured and lost ranking points while recovering. Each wore a gray labor collar that would lock if our barrier failed. Colleen saw the smallest student touching her collar. "He calls this an examination," she said. "It is an auction with better chairs." Our 61 supporters entered through the west gate. The crowd reacted when the measuring board displayed our maximum reserve of 468. A week earlier, that number would have made a first-year club famous. Across the arena, Volmar touched his measuring pillar. 900 units burned above him. The difference silenced the stands. Volmar wore dark combat robes this time. The monster liquid had retired his white ones. A golden staff rested in his hand. "This academy survives because the strong carry responsibility," he told the audience. "Training walls, monster wards, and scholarships require money. Students without useful classes repay their education through frontier service. Avon offers comforting words while consuming the mana of anyone foolish enough to believe him." His argument was cruel, but it was not empty. The academy wards cost hundreds of gold each month. Frontier contracts paid for part of them. Many teachers in the stands believed the system was ugly and necessary. That made Volmar more dangerous than a man who only wanted money. I stepped into the central circle. "How much did the academy receive for each missing student in the old drain?" I asked. The crowd stirred. "This is not a hearing," Volmar said. "How much?" The council projector activated above the arena. Perrin had given its clerks a copy of the drain records. Numbers appeared beside Volmar's face. The academy had received 4 gold per student marked dead. It had also received 3 gold per month for every student secretly kept alive as monster bait. For 40 students across 6 months, the total was 880 gold. Only 200 had reached the ward fund. The rest had passed through accounts controlled by Volmar. Shouting spread through the stands. Volmar struck the sand with his staff. The money funded necessary operations. Then publish the operations. A student does not command a professor. Today, a professor is attacking 100 children to defend his bookkeeping. Titles may not help you as much as usual. The first wave of laughter came from the porter section. It crossed the arena until even several teachers looked away from Volmar. His face hardened. The examination clerk explained the rules. Volmar would release 3 attacks over 10 minutes. I could use the abilities of my registered club. Nobody outside the club could cast into the arena. If the central protection stone remained intact, the 100 students kept their places. "Can they join the club during the examination?" I asked. The clerk checked the rule sheet. Registration normally takes 1 day. I asked whether they could support our purpose. Volmar answered for her. "Let them. Fear cannot create his link. They will only prove that his claims are false." He was correct about fear. A person accepting my purpose only because a fireball approached would add nothing. I faced the 100 students. "You do not owe me your mana," I said. "You do not need to join. If our shield fails, that failure belongs to me. Stay behind Colleen and keep low." Several students stared at me as if I had spoken the wrong language. Volmar raised his staff. The timer began. His first spell used 200 units. A golden hammer formed above the arena. It fell toward the protection stone with enough force to break a castle gate. I used 240 units on hold. Pale light spread from Colleen's shield. The command echoes of our supporters overlapped. A dome covered the 100 students. The golden hammer struck. The sand dropped beneath my feet. Cracks ran across the dome, but it remained standing. The impact threw Volmar's voice out of every broadcast crystal and replaced it with the sound of 600 people gasping at once. My available reserve fell from 468 to 228. Volmar still had 700. The first attack had cost me more than it cost him. He smiled. "Your borrowed power will run out first." The timer showed 8 minutes. He began forming the second spell. 7 golden spears appeared above the circle. Together they carried 300 units. Colleen's hands shook from the first impact. Sorel moved among the supporters, treating split skin and mana strain. Perrin organized the 100 students into rows so nobody crushed the smaller children. I could block perhaps 4 spears. One of the protected students stepped forward. He had been a porter in the supply yard. He had watched us repair the cart, rescue the missing team, and return for supporters who withdrew. "I support the purpose," he said. 7 mana entered the reserve. Another student joined him, then 3 more. They did not decide because of the approaching spears alone. They decided because the barrier in front of them already existed. The system counted each informed choice. 39 students accepted the purpose. Their combined maximum mana was 3,040 units. 304 moved into the common reserve. My supporter count reached 100. The system spoke through every measuring stone in the arena. Lord of Support had fulfilled its first condition. My class evolved into Master of Shared Mana. The public board changed before 600 witnesses. The gray class name everyone had mocked turned blue. Volmar's 7 spears stopped for half a heartbeat. That was long enough. At 100 true supporters, repeated command effects no longer acted as separate voices. They formed a chorus. 46 hold echoes combined around Colleen's original command. Hold became hold together. It was not free power. It was the same willing contribution, aligned toward one action. Every unit now protected the whole formation instead of one point. My current reserve had risen from 228 to 532. I spent 300. The dome changed. Thin light became a wall made of overlapping shields. Each spear struck a different layer. 1 broke, 2 broke. All 7 vanished before reaching the students. The crowd did not gasp this time. It roared. My current reserve fell to 232. Volmar had 400 remaining. The timer showed 5 minutes. He looked toward Garrick in the front row. "Enter the examiner's side," Volmar ordered. "Your Spellblade class was granted under my authority. Refusal will return it to the Academy." Every face turned toward Garrick. 4 days earlier, he would have entered before Volmar finished speaking. Now the public board still showed the zero genuine support recorded by his red ribbons. The 20 students he had coerced sat together several rows behind him. Garrick stood. For one moment, I expected fire. He removed the Academy class badge from his collar and dropped it onto Volmar's side of the boundary. "You promised me Ivan's class before the examination," he said. "You planted the silver training seal in his bag. You said nobody would question it." The arena became so quiet that the badge could be heard striking the sand. Volmar stared at him. "You will lose everything." Garrick looked at the former red ribbon students. "I already looked ridiculous in 2 different capes. I have very little dignity left to threaten." Laughter broke the silence. This time Garrick allowed it. The council projector magnified the badge. Its stored record contained Volmar's authorization. The planted evidence was no longer my word against a professor's. It had a signature, a witness, and 600 people watching. The third attack began forming above Volmar. He had stopped protecting his position. Now he wanted to win. The remaining 400 units of his reserve flowed into a golden lance. The arena wards classified it as a lethal spell and attempted to close. Volmar used his professor's seal to keep them open. The examination clerk shouted for him to stop. He did not. The lance grew longer than the arena. Heat burned the sand into glass beneath it. The 100 students behind me saw a professor choose his pride over their lives. 32 more accepted our purpose. They contributed 246 units. My supporter count rose to 132. My maximum common reserve reached 1,018, surpassing Volmar's 900. My current reserve rose from 232 to 478. It was not enough to meet the lance directly. Then the stands began to collapse. Volmar's spell had pulled mana from the structural wards. Stone cracked beneath 600 spectators. The examination was no longer only about the central 100. Hold Together responded to the purpose of every supporter. Protect the weak. The definition did not end at the arena boundary. I opened the common reserve to every hold echo and ordered the dome outward. The barrier expanded beneath the stands. It caught falling stone, covered the central circle, and wrapped around Volmar's own side of the arena. The professor looked up as the zero-mana leader's shield protected him from his own damaged ward. The supporters felt the cost as I put 360 remaining units into Hold Together. Knees bent across the arena, but nobody withdrew. The golden lance struck. Blue-white light swallowed the central circle. The broadcast crystals went blind. Every window in the nearest tower shook. When the light faded, our barrier still stood. The protection stone behind me had no crack. The 100 labor collars opened and fell into the sand. Volmar's lance had vanished. His reserve showed 0. Mine showed 118 available and 1,018 maximum. The recoil had thrown him backward into his golden ceremonial chair. The chair slid down the examiner's ramp, crossed the sand, and stopped beneath the public board. Above his head, the board displayed the final result. Shield Club, victory. Examiner, disqualified for lethal force, financial concealment, evidence tampering, and damage to Academy wards. Volmar tried to stand. One broken chair leg remained caught inside his robe. It followed him across the sand like a loyal pet. 600 students watched him leave. The reaction did not end with laughter. Families demanded records. Teachers who had remained silent began speaking to council investigators. The rescued students showed their academy chains. Copies of the Silver Seal evidence spread through every message crystal before noon. By afternoon, Volmar had lost his teaching seal, his accounts, and control of the combat faculty. He was not sent to prison yet. The capital had to review his case, but he could no longer order a student into a ruin. The Academy paid 30 gold in immediate compensation to the Shield Club. The ranking board moved us from 14th place to 3rd. It also granted us the abandoned West residence as a permanent hall. After spending 5 gold on food, beds, and repairs, my wallet held 37 gold, 14 silver, and 2 copper. Our maximum power was 1,018. Our status had moved from a threatened club to the 3rd-ranked organization in Atlas Academy. We spent the evening in the West Hall. It had a real kitchen, 20 bedrooms, and windows that kept weather on the correct side. The protected students brought pans of garlic chicken with crisp skin, bowls of white rice, and fried eggs with soft golden centers. Someone cooked onions in the chicken fat until they became sweet. Warm bread passed from hand to hand. For dessert, Cyril found a jar of plum jam and guarded it more seriously than she had guarded the medicine shelf. Perrin fell asleep at the table again. Success had not improved this habit. Colleen and I carried 2 bowls to the roof. The academy lights spread below us. For the first time, nobody could remove me through the east gate at sunset. 132, she said. Supporters. You counted before I finished. I thought you were asking. I was thinking about the first one. She sat beside me. Our shoulders touched. If you had not offered your hand, the class would still be an empty bucket, I said. If you had been a different man, I would not have offered it. The wind moved her copper hair across her face. I reached out and tucked it behind her ear. This time I did not hand her a cloth instead. She leaned closer. The capital arrival bell rang before either of us moved again. It rang 7 times. Black carriages entered the academy through the north gate. Silver-armored officials surrounded Founders Square. At their center walked a narrow man in a blue coat, carrying a white staff marked with the crown. Inspector Osric entered the West Hall while everyone was still eating. He placed a sealed order on our table. It froze our rank award, remaining academy funds, and charter pending review. Then he touched our measuring stone. His personal reserve was 1,320 units. Ivan, he said, you have created an unlicensed collective mana structure. Under Crown security law, your class is state property. At noon tomorrow, I will remove it from your soul. The system counted 132 true supporters. Osric's confiscation order counted them as stolen goods. By breakfast, rumors said my class ate souls, and Colleen controlled me through soup. She kept the second notice above the stove. Osric's official warnings claimed supporters could never leave and might become empty bodies. I knew leaving was safe, but I did not know what happened after the 1,000-supporter evolution. Hiding that uncertainty would betray my promise of informed choice. At 8, I gathered all 132 supporters while broadcast crystals carried my words across the academy. I can prove that your mana returns when you leave, I said. I cannot prove what the final evolution will do. I have never reached it. Anyone who believes that risk is too large should withdraw now. Nobody will lose a bed, food, treatment, or membership in this hall. One bond ended, taking 8 units. Others followed. Some people needed their mana for their families. Others no longer trusted my judgment. I shamed none of them. By the time the meeting ended, 49 people had withdrawn. Their contributions totaled 376 units. My supporter count fell from 132 to 83. My maximum common reserve fell from 1,018 to 642. My evolved class remained, but hold together weakened. Osric still had 1,320. His first attack had succeeded before the duel. The capital newspapers announced my collapse. The academy treasurer locked our compensation, and yesterday's cheering students argued over whether I had bewitched them. Garrick found me outside the hall. You needed them, but you let them leave, he said. You are difficult to hate properly. He gave me a disc containing his testimony and the original class assignment. Osric had offered to restore his badge if he accused me of forced recruitment. I told him I had already tried that, Garrick said. The stone laughed at me before 400 people. He left before I could thank him. At noon, students filled the roofs around Founders Square. Broadcast mirrors carried the audit to Capitol offices and guild halls. Osric and I had chosen the same large audience. A white extraction circle covered the square. 20 silver-armored cadets stood around it. Obedience bands connected their wrists to Osric's staff. Each had signed a state service oath. None looked at him willingly. Beside Osric stood a chest holding 500 gold. He offered it and a noble title for my class. The wealth could maintain our hall for years, but accepting would turn every supporter into property exchanged for my comfort. No, I said. Osric had watched a voluntary mana league destroy a capital district 20 years earlier. 10,000 citizens empowered one speaker, and 8,000 died when he betrayed them. That explained Osric's fear. It did not excuse his collars. Then build laws that preserve consent, I said. Do not remove it. Consent changes by the hour. A kingdom cannot rest on a feeling. Your 20 cadets seem very stable. Ask the measuring stone how much they support you. The crowd reacted. Osric ordered the cadets to touch the central obelisk. Declare your loyalty to the crown inspector. 20 voices repeated the oath. The obelisk stayed white. Its voice entered every broadcast mirror. No genuine support detected. Laughter erupted from the roofs. Osric struck the stone. State service is not measured by affection. Neither is fear, I said. The public score showed Osric with 1,320 personal mana and 0 genuine supporters. It showed me with 0 personal mana, 83 true supporters, and 642 shared mana. I was still weaker by 678. The audit law gave Osric 5 minutes to place the confiscation seal on my chest. If he succeeded, the crown could extract the class. I could defend myself, but could not leave the white circle. Colleen stood outside the boundary with Cyril and Perrin. She carried the founder's shield. The 83 remaining supporters filled the first rows behind them. The bell rang. Osric moved faster than Volmar. White chains erupted from the ground. The first wave carried 300 units. It did not target my body. It wrapped around the invisible bonds connecting me to my supporters. Cold pain crossed 83 people at once. I spent 240 units on hold together. A pale wall formed around the links. The chain struck it and drove me to one knee. My current reserve fell to 402. Osric had 1,020 remaining. The scoreboard displayed both numbers. Capital officials began writing the result before the first minute ended. Osric walked toward me with the seal in one hand. Collective power always produces collective pain. End this before they suffer more. He believed his own warning. That made it effective. Several supporters gripped their seats. None withdrew, but I could feel their fear through the link. I used the broadcast connection to open our club records. Every mirror in the square displayed the money we had received and spent. 40 silver from the Guardian trial, 3 gold from registration, 12 gold from the drain cores, 30 gold in compensation. Every loaf of bread, healing bottle, roof tile, and bed had a recorded price. The records also showed the exact mana contribution of every supporter and the fact that 49 people had left that morning unharmed. I will not tell you that support is safe because I need your power, I said to the crowd. It costs 1/10 of your maximum mana. When I spend the common reserve, you share the fatigue. If you lose trust, your contribution returns. My purpose is not to make you follow me. It is to stop this academy from turning weak people into tools. Osric sent the second chain. I used 180 units on move. Instead of blocking, I shifted the shared strain across every willing body. The chain missed my core and wrapped around my left arm. The confiscation seal came within 3 steps. My reserve fell to 222. Osric still had 720. Colleen walked to the edge of the circle. I was the first, she said. The broadcast crystals carried her voice. I had 140 mana. I gave 14 because Ivan promised that weak students would stop dying as equipment. He kept that promise when he had 14 units, when he had 400, and when his own supporters left him inside a collapsing ruin. I do not know what happens at 1,000 either. That is why I am supporting the purpose, not worshipping the man. She looked directly at me. The man is acceptable too. Laughter and cheers struck the square together. My concentration suffered more from that sentence than from Osric's chain. One of the 49 former supporters stood. I withdrew because I was afraid, he said. I am still afraid, but he told the truth when lying would have made him stronger. His bond returned. 7 mana entered the reserve. Another former supporter renewed her choice. Then another. 37 of the 49 returned. Nobody called the remaining 12 cowards. Their decision remained theirs. Students outside the club began stepping forward. Some had watched the Guardian trial. Some had been protected in the arena. Others had only seen a crown inspector bring chains to an argument about freedom. The 20 cadets around the circle looked at their obedience bands. One removed his hand from Osric's staff. The band burned his wrist. Cyril crossed the council line and treated him before an official could stop her. He accepted our purpose. The other cadets followed. The system counted the decisions in a steady wave. 37 returning supporters and 69 new supporters joined the 83 who had remained. Together, they contributed 810 units. My supporter count rose to 189. My maximum shared reserve climbed from 642 to 1,452. My available reserve rose from 222 to 1,032. The number appeared above the square. It was 132 units higher than Osric's original maximum, and 312 higher than what he had left. Every capital mirror showed it. Osric stopped 3 steps away. For the first time, his calm expression broke. "Close the broadcast," he ordered. The technicians did not move. "That is a crown command." The central obelisk answered him again. No genuine support detected. The laughter was loud enough to shake birds from the Academy towers. Osric drove all 720 remaining units into the confiscation seal. White chains filled the circle. They formed a crown-shaped cage above me and dropped toward my soul. The 20 cadets were still connected to his staff through their obedience bands. His spell began pulling mana from them without consent. Their faces went white. I could use my stronger reserve to strike Osric directly. That would leave the cadets inside his spell. The purpose chose the target before my anger did. I spent 100 units on Mend. Sorel's command echoes spread through the 20 cadets and stabilized their cores. I spent 180 on Move. Perrin's echoes shifted them out of the extraction pattern. Then I placed 720 units into Hold Together. Kaline raised her shield. 189 voluntary contributions answered one order. Our barrier formed inside Osric's cage. The white crown descended. For 5 breaths, the square vanished behind light. Cracks ran through the paving stones. Every broadcast mirror turned white. The barrier pushed outward. 1 chain broke, then 10, then all of them. The recoil traveled into Osric's staff. Its crown seal expanded around him instead of me. White metal wrapped his arms, chest, and knees until only his head remained visible above a polished cylinder. He fell sideways. The cylinder rolled across Founders Square, past the blue table, and struck the chest containing 500 gold. The lid opened. Coins poured over him like bright rain. 800 witnesses watched the Crown Inspector lie inside his own confiscation seal with 500 gold balanced on his face. Nobody needed the obelisk to explain the result. It did anyway. Confiscation failed. Genuine support detected. 189. The 5-minute bell rang. The public boards declared me the winner. For several seconds, the only sound in the square was gold rolling between stones. Then the crowd began chanting the name of the Shield Club. Not my name. That mattered more. Officials removed the cadets' obedience bands and copied the broadcast. 3 guild halls recognized voluntary mana bonds as lawful while disputed. The Crown could appeal, but it could not erase what thousands had seen. Osric was cut out of the white cylinder. He stood without his staff or his coat. "The Bureau will not ignore you," he said. "You have proved exactly why movements are dangerous. I proved that people you force will not strengthen you. The capital has other methods. Then bring more measuring stones." He left Founders Square through a path the crowd opened very slowly. By evening, the Academy restored our compensation and granted the Shield Club an independent charter. The Public Ranking Board moved us from 3rd place to 1st. The Audit Court awarded 50 gold for unlawful extraction and damage to our supporters. I spent 8 gold on medicine, food, and grants for the 12 people who had chosen not to reconnect. After every cost, my wallet held 79 gold, 14 silver, and 2 copper. 5 days earlier, I had owned 2 copper, 0 mana, 0 supporters, and last place. Now I had 1,452 shared mana, 189 supporters, and the first-ranked club. By dinner, drawings of Osric rolling through gold filled every dormitory. The West Hall filled with warm light that night. Long tables held roasted vegetables, peppered beef, fresh rolls brushed with butter, and apple pies covered in cinnamon. Honey cream melted over each hot slice. The smell reached the courtyard, and nobody checked club rank before offering a plate. Cyril ate standing beside the medicine shelf because she refused to trust 189 tired people near hot knives. Perrin stayed awake through the main meal and considered it a personal advancement. Colleen found me on the roof after sunset. She carried 2 pieces of apple pie and no measuring stone. "How much mana?" she asked. 1,452 maximum. 932 had regenerated after the duel. "How much money?" 79 gold, 14 silver, and 2 copper. "How many supporters?" 189. She handed me a plate. "And how do you feel?" I looked at the academy below us. 5 days of planning had changed every number I owned. It had not made the future smaller. Volmar still faced a capital review instead of a cell. Osric had promised the Bureau would return. A sealed command still waited beneath the floor, but the hall behind us was full of people eating because nobody could sell them to a frontier team tomorrow. "Hungry," I said. Colleen laughed. That answer was terrible. "I also feel that this pie is cooling." We ate. The crust broke under my fork. The apples were soft and sharp with spice, and the honey cream was cold against them. Colleen's shoulder rested against mine. When she reached for my hand, I did not calculate what it meant. I held hers. The sealed command, "Remember," opened beneath us. The hall went dark. A grinding sound came from the kitchen. We ran downstairs with Cyril and Perrin. The pantry shelves had moved away from the wall. Behind them, a spiral stair descended into blue darkness. A woman in a plain black coat stood on the first step. She carried no weapon. Her face showed no surprise, attraction, or fear. She looked at the measuring stone in my hand as if checking a delayed shipment. "My name is Fiona," she said. "I inherited the watch beneath Atlas Academy." Colleen moved between us. "Were you the signal under our floor?" "No, I was watching the signal." "What is down there?" I asked. Fiona turned toward the stairs. "The people who owned your class before the academy existed." We followed her 83 meters beneath the West Hall. The stair ended at a stone balcony. Beyond it lay a city hidden inside a cavern. Blue lamps covered streets, towers, farms, and bridges. I saw thousands of living people below. They wore the same broken circle symbol carved into my class crystal. The system spoke. 7,412 legacy supporters had been detected. Their combined possible contribution exceeded 44,000 mana. Access to the reserve was sealed. Their declared allegiance belonged to one person, Thalen, the previous owner of my class. Fiona watched the streets below. "They have waited 300 years for him to return. Why did my system detect them? Because they believe you are carrying more than his class." One blue lamp after another turned toward the balcony. Thousands of people saw me. They dropped to their knees. The cavern shook with a single name. "Thalen!" The common reserve tried to open. For one instant, 44,000 units pressed against my zero-mana soul. Then a second voice spoke from somewhere inside the sealed class. It was not the system. "At last," it whispered, "my body has returned."